Hey everybody, Derek here for weekly news recap for the. I gotta check the dates again. I check these before I come in, and I always forget. Anyway, weekly news recap for the 15th to the 21st of August, 2022, and this time I will remember to transition. So first up, we have a report from Kotaku. Nintendo of America's testers say they faced years of sexual harassment. So yeah, we've got one of those. We are following on from a story from last week where some testers out of Nintendo had filed a lawsuit alleging much the same kind of stuff. Sorry, the lawsuit out of Nintendo was alleging union busting and that kind of thing, but there had been news earlier than that about these kind of harassment issues. So they talked to a couple of different people, starting off with Hannah as a pseudonym, but the harassment at her job led her to quit her dream job at Nintendo of America, nearly a decade of working there. This is harassment that came out because of a group chat over Microsoft Teams that they were just, a lot of offices have these. You just have like a meme area where you just, post internet shit and tell jokes and whatever. It's just a place to blow off steam, what have you. But a male translator was added to the group and soon started posting screenshots about why Vaporeon was the best Pokemon to have sex with. Okay, not the smartest thing to add to an office group chat. Also, why Vaporeon? I don't actually know. I don't want to know. I don't know what the answer to that is. Then there was other stuff. He'd post something from Genshin Impact. If anyone's played that, might know the character of Paimon, who is not exactly a child, but is certainly childlike. And he posted about how it's okay to be sexually attracted to Paimon despite the character's childlike appearance. Again, not something you should probably put in your office chat, but okay, this is making people very uncomfortable. Nintendo was almost like a nightmare. It's sad because I love Nintendo. I grew up with Nintendo. I was so excited to join Nintendo when I first got there, and I thought I was going somewhere. I had my supervisors telling me I was doing such a good job. But anytime she would bring up these kind of sexual harassment issues, it's not just the chat stuff. There's other things that come up in this article. She would either be brushed off or nothing would happen, or because the person involved was an actual full-time Nintendo employee and they were only a contract employee, basically nothing happened. It was easier to get rid of the contract worker. Contract workers are an essential part of making the company such enormous profits. So this is going into how Nintendo is able to make so much, because they don't have to pay the perks and benefits exactly, because they just have a bunch of contract workers. It's just not, Nintendo are not the only company that do this. So many of them do it. Keeping costs down is another way of keeping insane profits up. 25% of the roles advertised in Nintendo America are on a contract basis, so not great. That's just in the North American quarters. So yeah, having like a quarter of your entire workforce being contract, not amazing. And that's just the advertised roles, and that's not even like the entirety of it. Full-time Nintendo employees were referred to as red badges. So that's all. They're already othering people, which isn't, it's not great, and it leads to problems, and you're going to see the problems later on. Women were both underrepresented among contractors, but also not often hired into full-time roles. So contractors in general, not typically hired into full-time roles, but then even further than that, women contractors almost certainly never hired into full-time roles. The issue being that, among full-time employees, 37% are salaried employees are women, and only 23% of its managers are women. So again, the world is 50-50, men and women-ish, close enough. The workforce of a company that doesn't necessarily have a particularly gendered outlook. I don't know how to put it, but really it should still be 50-50. An office environment should still be around a 50-50. Okay, so there's some issues here of pay disparagement. I can't think of the word now. The word refuses to come out. You know the word I mean. Pay inequality. A more junior male contractor in the testing department was making $19 an hour, while she was only making $16 an hour. Again, this is still Hannah. She asked Aerotech, which is the name of the contracting firm, what's the deal? I'm more experienced. I've been working for much longer. I should be on a higher pay. Why are they on a higher pay than me? And instead of like addressing any of that, they decided to just bump her pay to $18 an hour. You'll still note that 18 is still less than 19. I mean, if you're doing the same job, it should probably be the same amount. And then I guess you can add on for seniority or whatever. That's really up to the company. But if the job is literally the exact same thing, you should be paying the exact same amount of money. Aerotech management warned her to be less outspoken after she reported these incidents. So these kind of harassment incidents, the pay gap stuff, all that kind of thing. Be less outspoken about these things. Yeah, just stick to the status quo. Don't rock the boat, etc. Always for toxic environments to continue being toxic is because nobody speaks out about them. The only repercussion, the translator, this is the guy who was talking about fucking Vaporeon, faced was being assigned sexual harassment training. They couldn't do anything about it because he was a Nintendo employee, basically. Aerotech had fired one of its employees previously. This is like the contractors, they're actual people, for making comments about the color of Hannah's underwear. Okay, again, guys, this is not very professional. You don't do this shit. However, this translator guy, the guy who wants to fuck Paimon, again, is a full-time Nintendo employee. They don't have control over him. All they can do is tell Nintendo about it, and I'm guessing either Nintendo don't care or they didn't tell Nintendo because they have this contract basically with Nintendo, Aerotech and Nintendo partnership. They want to keep that going, so they don't want to rock the boat about that kind of thing either. Working for Nintendo meant the third-party contracting company couldn't terminate his employment. Nintendo stuffed its testing department with temporary employees from the contracting company, Aerotech, now known as Ashton Carter. Aerotech has had multiple labor lawsuits filed against it across the years. The EEOC forced the company to pay over $3 million to settle an anti-discrimination lawsuit in regards to age, sex, and race. So Aerotech / Ashton Carter have precedent for this kind of thing, for not dealing with their harassment issues, with their pay I keep saying disparagement. That's not the right word. But anyway, I'm going to keep saying it because my brain refuses to say the correct word. So yeah, it's not like appealing to Ashton Carter. Aerotech obviously wasn't going anywhere. It didn't go anywhere in the amount of time that Hannah was working there. There's also a mention here of last week's story that there was a union busting complaint made to the NLRB in regards to Ashton Carter and Nintendo about, being union busting people, trying to stop people talking about unions, forming unions, repercussions for people who did talk about that kind of thing. And it should be pointed out that it is legal. You are allowed to talk about union stuff. You are allowed to talk about your salary and so on. Hannah quits her job because she felt that her workplace did not adequately protect her from sexually inappropriate behavior from men. This is from Nintendo, right? Nintendo have really go out of their way to build up this wholesome idea. They're meant to be like nice and friendly and, family oriented and so on. And they have this kind of stuff that they just gloss over. They're not the only ones, sure. Activision do it, Riot do it, Ubisoft have done it, and so on. But it doesn't absolve them from this issue. They still need to address it. Others who felt that Redmond, Washington, which is where Nintendo of America's headquarters is, office had a problem with treating women with respect. They told a story of a corporate culture where sexist behavior was commonplace and very little action was taken to address it. And what does this sound like? Because this sounds exactly like Activision, Ubisoft, Riot, and so on. These employees worked on games and consoles ranging from the early Wii U to the present Nintendo Switch. So this is still fairly recent, these stories. People who have left, or some have left the industry entirely. This is from a former contractor. I applied for a bunch of other jobs in the industry and they would ask me why I was looking to leave Nintendo. Because why would you ever leave Nintendo? That's like you've hit the top tier of video game companies. Why would you bother? And they said a lack of advancement opportunities was a huge part of it. So they weren't promoting contractors to full-time employment. And then they weren't promoting female employees. Female contractors or female full-time employees weren't getting pushed up the ranks either. Your chance of being converted to full-time was probably worse as a girl. It's usually guys who get promoted. They're usually all friends. They watch the Super Bowl together. Again, jobs for the boys, cronyism kind of thing, frat house stuff, you look after your bros. Doug Bowser, Nintendo of America president, internally acknowledged the media allegations about the working conditions at the company. He said that Nintendo has zero tolerance for inappropriate conduct, including harassment, discrimination, or intimidation. Kotaku did reach out to them to say, does that zero tolerance policy extend to the contract employees? Nintendo did not come back with a comment. Former testers told Kotaku about a revolving door of female talent and a management indifference to keeping them. Contractors are given no explicit goals or benchmarks to hit that might assure a full-time conversion or even a contract renewal. So this is an idea that, what do I have to do to be promoted? What's the metrics? What are you looking for? Do I need to squash this many bugs, find this many issues, put in this many hours? Is there training I can do? Any of these kind of metrics. And basically the gist of it was, we'll promote you when we promote you. Nothing was based on metrics. It was things like, you got to get more FaceTime with this guy. I'm going to invite you to lunch, with so-and-so. Make sure you talk about these things. Nothing that was specifically work-related. You weren't given any of the tools. There was lots of favoritism and cronyism. So yeah, this was just make friends with the guy who does the promoting and he'll promote you. Which gives that person way too much power. Because basically, if you're on their bad side, there's nothing you can do about getting promoted. You can't go to this person and go, look at all the hours I've put in, here's all the work I've done, you can see how the project has improved because I've been on it, and so on. You have metrics you can actually point at. If there isn't any of that kind of thing, then you are at the mercy of whoever does that job. Hannah, again, and two other female contractors said that they experienced harassment from full-time Nintendo workers and fellow Aerotech Ashton Carter contractors. The power difference between full-time employees, red badges, and contractors exacerbated inappropriate behavior, giving women contractors another reason to aspire to full-time employment. Basically, they wanted to become full-time employees, not because of job security and better pay and so on, which are all good things, but mostly to get away from all the sexual harassment. This is Melvin Forrest, who's head of the Department for Product Testing. Forrest makes the schedule for Aerotech Associates. So he decides who gets on what projects. He decides who comes back after project ends. He decides if you have a job or not, basically. So maintaining a good working relationship with him was crucial. Now, this is fine if he's professional. But if he's being mentioned in this report, you can probably guess he's not professional. Female testers who had very uncomfortable experiences with Forrest as a manager. Forrest made inappropriate advances toward female testers. It was pretty common knowledge, this is from Allison, who I assume is another pseudonym. It was pretty common knowledge that he would make comments, hit on people, like to tell associates, oh, she's so beautiful. Forrest went after all the associate girls. This is from Chris Ollis, former contract tester. Associates would even warn each other to stay away from his desk. This is the guy responsible for whether or not you have a job at the end of the project, or whether you get put onto good projects, or whether he puts in a good word for you to get promoted, and so on. Not great. If you were friendly with him, you were more likely to be brought back sooner or less likely to be laid off. Not great. It's from Chris Ollis again. He's recounting something that happened during a party and Nintendo was sponsoring. At the party, his supervisor, Eric Bush, leaned in and told him to ask a female contractor what color her panties were. Yeah, not very professional here. And this is a guy who's worked on Golden Sun, Pokemon, Breath of the Wild. These aren't like small projects buried in Nintendo anywhere. These are like some flagship stuff here. Product testing really felt like a frat house sometimes. They would make jokes about gender stereotypes and female characters who got their skirts flipped up. When a female contractor would complain, she was told, or they tell her that she had to be tough enough to work in product testing. Really? That's where you need to be tough? In a fucking office where you sit on your ass playing video games. That's where you need to be tough. How about you need to grow up, guys? How about that? How about you're at work and you should treat it that way? But no. Basically no, because, hey, I'm a full-time employee. I have a Nintendo Red Badge. What are you? Contractor? Fuck you. Anyway, queer women, as you might imagine, obviously didn't do too well either. significantly older man who was her backup coordinator tried to hit on her when she had just started working at the company. Informed him that, she doesn't swing that way. Oh, you're a lesbian. That's kind of sad. That was the first impression. It's like day one. This is your impression of your supervisor, basically. Great. Can't wait to keep working here. I love it. Also, not taking a no for an answer. Very much a frat boy thing of, are you sure you're a lesbian? But you're flirting with me. You're just playing hard to get. No. You're responsible for whether or not she has a job. She has to be nice to you. This is the same thing as thinking the waitress is flirting with you. It's not. She has to be nice to you. It's customer service. And if it's in America, she needs a tip, etc. She says an Aerotech supervisor called them into the contracting office and admonished the pair for violating the agency's no-touching policy, which was rarely enforced for straight couples displaying affection in the office. So this was two queer employees that were just holding hands in the office. Now, again, that's not exactly professional either. And it's already mentioned here that there was a policy against it, but it wasn't being enforced on straight couples. It seems it was only enforced on queer couples, which is homophobic. Again, not a great look for your professional office environment. It was common for full-time Nintendo employees to date precariously employed contractors. Oh, great. Love it. Love me some grooming stuff. It's great. A lot of the NOA red badges had reputations for using the tester pool of associates as a dating pool. This is Allison again. If you were approached by a red badge and they appeared to be making moves on you, other women said that you didn't want to dissuade them too hard, again, because they're responsible for you getting maybe promoted, maybe getting a good word in, maybe getting your job back at the end of the project, and so on. Not good. This is a considerable power imbalance to have professionally, and then to have that also in your private life as well. Like, you can't turn it off, basically. It's not good. The lot check department, if you're not familiar, lot check it's kind of a QA area. It's a bit more legal focused. It's mostly for stuff like if legal terms are correctly shown in a game. So like things like anything that has a trademark or anything that has a registered copyright and stuff like that. So if a game is referring to, since this is Nintendo, if a game is referring to the Switch console, like don't turn off your console because we're saving, etc., it has to display. It can't say don't turn off your console. It has to say don't turn off your Nintendo Switch. It has to say Nintendo Switch, and it has to be block capitals Nintendo and so on. If it's referring to face buttons, it has to call them specific things. It can't just say the Y button. It has to show a picture of the Y button. It's all that kind of shit. Anyway, it's very boring, very dry. But they also weren't exempt from this kind of shit. So the lot check department was unsafe and uncomfortable environment for female testers. Lot check felt like a deeply uncomfortable place to be as a woman. I felt like I was treated with a sense of otherness. I have had people act in a way that made me uncomfortable, then ask me not to go to HR about it because I'd be misinterpreting it. That is gaslighting. Making me feel guilty about my own discomfort. Yep, that's gaslighting, alright. I never felt as included in things or as respected. Again, this is very much lads, frat house guy shit, bros before hoes, that kind of mentality, and that has no place in college either, but it definitely has no place outside of it. This is also news that went outside of the office too. A senior tester was stalking this contract employee. He made calls and sent text messages to her phone. Talking was so bad that she cried at her desk and had panic attacks every day. Because the man was friends with the right people, she didn't feel she could flag the stalking to her contracting company. Again, bros, cronyism, jobs for the boys stuff means they become untouchable. Again, it's having this tiered thing of red badges and non-red badges. It leads to this kind of shit. The stalker had free reign to torment his victim because, again, she's a contract employee. She can only bring this shit up with her contracting firm, Aston Carter, Aerotech, whoever, and they can't do, or it's not that they can't do anything, they're just not willing to jeopardize this deal they have with Nintendo, so they're not going to say anything. The stalker, he said verbatim that he would get me fired if I reported it, so you're not even hiding it, not even hiding the power disparity. Disparity, that's the word, not disparagement. Okay. Despite these unwelcome incidents, Okay, so this is people like trying to be, professional, trying to do a good job, even though they're not getting, the reciprocation. You're reminded that if you're not willing to do something, someone else would love to have your spot. So this is you being loyal to the company, but the company not being loyal to you. They're happy to replace you because everybody wants to work for Nintendo, and that is unfortunately true. Everybody does want to work. Well, not everybody, but everybody in like video game industry development, that kind of stuff. Yes, you would obviously want to have "I worked for Nintendo" on my CV. Again, Doug Bowser wrote an internal statement. This was about when all the shit about Activision Blizzard came out. He was like condemning all the sexual harassment stuff, only for it to be happening in his own company. He said, we have a commitment to increase the proportion of women in managerial positions. Kotaku asked, has that happened? And again, they didn't get back to them. So, and the rest of the article is just highlighting other NLRB complaints that Nintendo have had just this past year. So this is mostly to highlight, it's not to necessarily shit on Nintendo. This isn't great, again, it's anonymous, pseudonyms and so on. Stuff is corroborated by other people in the Kotaku report, but until you see an actual lawsuit about this kind of thing, you can't say for definite this is definitely happening, although it sure sounds like it is. And their union busting stuff certainly doesn't help. Prior complaints before this about sexual harassment certainly don't help either. But again, this is just in the industry in general. It's not just Nintendo. It's not just Activision Blizzard. Certainly the Activision Blizzard one sounds the worst, but it's not just them. It's not a competition to be the worst. Any amount of this is bad. Riot Games having to do their like $100 million settlement. Ubisoft still being hit by this kind of thing, but because Gmos have controlling stock interest in it, then nothing's really going to happen there until they're gone. Activision are fighting this all the way. They don't want to admit to it, even though they sort of tacitly kind of have admitted to it, because they've said, we've taken steps to improve, etc., etc. It's like, you wouldn't have needed to improve these things if they weren't happening. So, either you admit they were happening or they weren't. So, but yeah, there's no admission here from Nintendo or anything. So this will be like an ongoing thing. We'll see what comes out of the lawsuit. But this is mostly to just highlight that it's everywhere. And just because this is a video game centered show, it doesn't mean it's only in the video game industry. This is everywhere. Anywhere where you have this kind of power dynamic, this kind of uncontested free reign, this kind of in-group kind of thing where you have to be friends with certain people in order to get anywhere in your professional career and so on. Like any of that kind of stuff it's a breeding ground for abuse, basically. Not just sexual abuse, but professional abuse, verbal abuse, and so on. I've been trying to open this bottle for about 5 minutes now. Okay, now it's open. But yeah, not good shit, but it is something to keep your eye on, especially if you're working for a big company, if you're working for necessarily a big company, but a company that employs a lot of people that don't necessarily have a lot of oversight. Like if the HR department is small compared to the amount of employees, this kind of stuff will happen. It's something to keep an eye on for your maybe more marginalized colleagues and stuff like that. Anyway, let's move on to the video games, shall we? So, some updates. So, some new games were announced during this week. So, this is Vengeful Guardian Moonrider. This is from the people who made Blazing Chrome. I think Blazing Chrome is like a Contra-alike, spiritual successor to Contra kind of thing. Vengeful Guardian Moonrider, however, appears to be more of a Ninja Gaiden spiritual successor. And I'm liking that we're seeing more Ninja Gaiden spiritual successors, because I really liked it. So we had this. We have like Cyber Shadow. We had The Messenger a few years ago as well. So like, this looks cool. This looks really nice. YouTube bitrate will obviously annihilate this, but it looks really fun. We have no idea of release date. I think platforms, it's pretty much everything. So we'll be mostly just waiting to see whenever it comes out. But yeah, more fun 2D side-scrolling, slashy, jumpy things. I really like these kind of games. I'm just not very good at them. Which is kind of the problem. That's right. being good at something is not a prerequisite to liking it. You know, as what I would always say. People say, "You like this thing so much. Why are you bad at it?" I like it. Doesn't mean I'm good at it. Also, somewhat announced, I guess, is Bloody Hell Hotel, which is like a vampire hotel kind of thing. So it's a bit of Hotel Transylvania to it, but it's not kid friendly. You are sort of, I think, the gist of what the game is going to be like is a little bit hard to tell because I don't feel like this is entirely gameplay. Like a lot of this is going to be bullshot, as they call it, or like screenshots that were doctored. It's the same kind of idea. But I think the idea is you're making a nice hotel to lure people in for you to feed on. I think that's the gist of it. So there's a bit of like hotel base management kind of stuff, and then there's probably a bit of a survival mechanic for keeping your health up or your blood level up or whatever. It appears you also have staff that are also vampiric. There was a vampiric cow there a second ago, and then you have, you know, bellboys and what have you, maids, etc., that are also vampires. And then there's some kind of dungeon crawling mechanic, I guess, as well. And maybe you can bring people into the dungeon with you. Again, whether what we're seeing there is actual gameplay or just made to look nice for the trailer, I have a feeling it's the second one, but, you know, we'll see. It's wish listed. I think for now it's just PC only. And then we have Lego Bricktales, which is what I thought, whatever the last Lego game was. Not the Traveler's Tales Legos, the other Lego game. I forget what it was called. It's like Imagine something. That's what I thought that was going to be, but this seems like the game I was expecting it was going to be. It's basically little Lego dioramas that you walk around in, have like an adventure in, you know, solving quests and stuff like that. Like this one, you need something that can fly to get up to that area, so you need to build something that can fly. Like that's kind of what I was hoping the other game was. It didn't turn out that way. But this one seems more like here, build something that can fly. Here's all the pieces. And you need to just make it work. You know, there's no blueprint necessarily you're going for. It's just the pure kind of Lego thing of here's a big box of Lego, make something out of it. And there's a bit of like direction in that it has to fly and not fall over and what have you. So if it's more like that, if that's what the puzzles are like for building, here's a bunch of Lego, build this thing we need, great. I would love that. I hope that is what it turns out to be, and it's not like somewhat on rails and that you have to build it exactly this way. So I do hope it is a bit more lax, or not lax, but like there's a lot of leeway in what you can build. You know, it's not too bad about that kind of thing. And again, this appears to be coming out on everything. Game Pass, some more games are coming to Game Pass. So we have these for Cloud Console and PC. We've Coffee Talk, which is a visual novel conversation thing. It's like you're just talking to people who come in for coffee. You talk about their story. Every patron customer, will say, has a different tale to tell, and you just make a coffee for them, whatever coffee they want, whatever drink they want, basically. Like some of them want like hot chocolate, some of them want tea, etc. The actual gameplay around it is just making sure you make the right drink, otherwise the game more or less plays itself. But it's got a fun story. It's a very chill game. I really liked it, and I believe there is a sequel on the way. The original developer of Coffee Talk passed away last year, I think. So the game sequel development was obviously delayed, but I think like friends of that developer, as they're like, we're gonna make sure it happens just for, you know, in his memory or what have you. Commandos 3 HD Remaster. Commandos is a very old school RTS. Not really an RTS, it's more like a squad-based kind of strategy game. I can't stand it, mostly because it's real time. I would prefer turn-based, but I think it's real time. Immortals Phoenix Rising is Ubisoft's attempt at Legend of Zelda, basically. And some people like it, some people don't. Your mileage might vary. Midnight Fight Express is a new game. It'll be out next week, maybe the week after. Midnight Fight Express is basically take your like old 80s, 90s action movies, or John Wick kind of thing as well. You're just one lone guy making your way from point A to point B and beating the shit out of everything along the way, more or less. Okay, and then for console and PC, we've Opus, Echo Star Song. No idea what that is. Tinykin, no idea what that is. For PC, we have Exapunks, no idea what that is. Sorry. PC and Xbox Series specifically, so not Xbox One, is Immortality. Immortality is from the same developer from Her Story and Telling Lies. It is a full motion video puzzle game where you are given snippets of video and you have a search bar basically, and you can search for any words, terms, or whatever. Typically, you'd be searching for something that came up in the last video clip you were looking at. You want to know more about it, or other video clips that have it. So, might be a specific term or somebody's name or something like that, and it will give you more video clips. It won't give you all of them. It'll just give you 5. And you're basically piecing together the story as you go, like that. Immortality, I think, takes it a bit further in that you're also being able to like cut out scenes and poses for things. Like you can cut out this object and be like, does this object appear anywhere else in the video clips and what have you. So it's certainly going to be a lot more in depth, and it has been delayed a couple of times, but it's nice that it is Game Pass. If you have Game Pass, that's a really interesting game that I am very interested to play and can't, because I doubt Sony will do the same thing, because PlayStation Plus is turning out to be kind of shit. So both of those, really, Midnight Fight Express and Immortality, will show up on the channel at some point whenever I get around to it. Hopefully. Speaking of even more Game Pass, we have PC Game Pass. Death Stranding will be showing up on PC Game Pass at some point. PC Game Pass and not Xbox Game Pass. So you won't see this on the Xbox consoles, normally because Sony somewhat have a stake somewhere in the partnership for Death Stranding. So I doubt you'll ever see it on Xbox. But it turns out it will be going to Microsoft's PC Game Pass August 23rd. So that's next week. Yep, Tuesday. Why is this happening? Why is Sony okay with this happening? Mostly because they don't get a choice. 505 Games, who do the publishing on PC, they're responsible for it, and they made the partnership with PC Game Pass. So Sony basically don't get a say. One small wrinkle and small annoyance is that it's not the director's cut. The director's cut has a lot more content, some additional story elements, some additional game modes and stuff like that. But the Death Stranding that's coming to PC Game Pass is not that one. It is the original version, which is still good. It's still very good, but it's not the director's cut. But still, seeing what is somewhat a Sony IP showing up on a Microsoft service, maybe we'll see more of that in the future. Maybe they'll get over each other and be like, why don't we just partner up? Although, saying that now, that wouldn't be great for competition anyway. Okay, so some game delays, more games getting delayed. Again, not surprising, really. If games are going to be delayed, now is when it happens, pretty much. They either push them out so that they'll come out at Christmas instead, or they push them out so that they hit the final quarter for the tax year. And it seems like Deliver Us Mars is going for the final quarter thing. So Deliver Us Mars has been delayed to February 2nd of 2023. It was originally meant to be October or November. No, it was meant to be September. I was very wrong. It was meant to be coming out the end of next month. It is now coming out in February instead. So that's like 4 months, 3 months-ish, which is pretty standard for we need to push it into next quarter, and maybe the game needs a bit of polish. Right, so that's pretty standard for that kind of thing. For their part, Kaioken Interactive, the developer, did say that, yeah, we just want to spend some time polishing it. We understand the news might be disappointing. In the meantime, we'll be sharing your patience will allow us to deliver the best experience we can. Yeah, it's just like we just want a little bit extra time to polish out some bugs and graphical shit. So yeah, I had played the original game, Deliver Us the Moon. Was one of our previous Foley Fables. I really liked it, and I was hoping to play Deliver Us Mars as well, the sequel. That's why I played it on the channel. That's why I played Deliver Us the Moon on the channel, so I could be ready for the sequel, but that's been pushed out to next year, so we're gonna have to find something to fill that gap. And then also, Evil West has also been delayed. Evil West has been delayed to the 22nd of November, so that is a kind of, we're pushing it into the Christmas run-up instead. This is from Flying Wild Hog, who make Shadow Warrior. So Evil West was like a Wild West God of War. more or less. It was an over-the-shoulder melee, some gun stuff, mostly melee from the looks of things, or mostly like close-range guns. It's like firing your revolver rapidly in close combat, shotguns, that kind of thing. But there's a lot of melee focus as well. But anyway, either way, yeah, we want to polish it. Giving our games more polish is crucial to provide our players again. So yeah, it is again another standard. We just want some more time to polish it. So it's gone from the 20th September. It was actually meant to come out last year, 2021, and then it was pushed to September, and now it's been pushed to November. So it's not as big a push. This is really more of a, we just want some extra time to do some polish, and our publisher is okay with that, basically. Okay, so that's some news about games coming in the future, but what about games you can play right now? So first up, we have Rollerdrome came out this week. Rollerdrome is, think of a cross between Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and The Running Man, the film, or Battle Royale, the film. So basically, it's like a deathmatch game show kind of thing. You play Roller Girl. I assume they have a name. I don't know what their name is. You have various arenas where you are skating around, performing stunts, and then trying not to get shot by all the other guys who are hanging out in the arena, intent on killing you. So you're racking up points, number of kills you can get, multipliers, don't get hit. If you do get hit, it resets your multiplier kind of thing. You refill your ammo by doing stunts, by doing tricks and stuff like that. So grabs and spins and pulls and that kind of thing. That's how you get your ammo back. And ammo is actually fairly scarce, so you're going to want to be stunting fairly often and killing enemies as fast as you can. And, being not judicial. No. Sparing, I guess. Sparing with your ammunition and so on, because you don't get much of it. We will probably play this at some point on the channel. I'm just not sure when. There is a game trial for it on PlayStation Plus Premium right now. However, there is some shenanigans with the amount of time you're meant to get. It is advertised that you're meant to get an hour, but you actually only get 30-ish minutes. So we're not sure what the deal is there. Is it a mistake? Are they going to fix that mistake? And so on. So if they decide to fix the mistake, then I'll just play the trial and we'll have a look at that. If they don't, I'll probably just get the game and play it anyway. So that's Rollerdrome. And we have Thymesia. Thymesia is budget Bloodborne, basically. There's actually a funny comment on this YouTube video where it says, Mom, we want to play we want to get Bloodborne, and it's like, we have Bloodborne at home, and like, this is Bloodborne at home kind of thing. So yeah, there's people being like, this is obviously Bloodborne, made by probably not as big a team with much less of a budget, but they're doing the best they can with it. And it looks interesting enough. The main character's sort of combat and animation looks really nice, and that's kind of what's drawing me into it. I don't know about the rest of the game exactly, or how well that'll hold up, but yeah, the combat stuff does look fun. I'll skip ahead a little bit. It looks very, not to use the word because it's overplayed, but visceral. There's a lot of flair to the animation, so that looks kind of neat. But yeah, you can definitely see why people think it's budget Bloodborne. Anyway, well, again, Thymesia will be on the channel at some point. RPG time, The Legend of Wright. This was shown off at one of the recent Nintendo Indie World Showcases. So this is essentially, it's a JRPG, but it is, the story conceit is that you are kind of helping the developer make it in real time. It's like they're just using a sketchbook to sort of draw up their ideas of what the RPG could be like and whatever, and you're sort of playing it like, you're sort of like playing a prototype kind of thing. So it has that kind of idea to it. It's all like card and sketch work and like handmade stuff and that kind of thing. Yeah, it looks like it has a great presentation, right? So that's obviously the big appeal here, is the presentation is really, really nice. So yeah, again, we will have a look at this at some point. You could say this for almost every game that's coming up this week. Yeah, so we'll see how it goes. Whenever I get around to it. Kirby's Dream Buffet. This sort of came out of nowhere. It was just announced a month ago, maybe, and is now coming out. So Kirby's Dream Buffet, you can think of it as like Fall Guys and Mario Party. There's a bit of both. You have the Fall Guys sense in that there's like one of the main modes is essentially a race to the end where you're having to overcome a bunch of obstacles, and it's all very colorful and nice and sort of physics-based kind of thing. The idea here, though, is that Fall Guys is like elimination, right? Kirby's Dream Buffet isn't. It's a 4-player game. 4 players are in it until the end. And the goal is to become the biggest Kirby, basically. Is to eat all the food and become the largest Kirby you can. You have your race mode where it's try to collect as many strawberries as you can and get to the end first, kind of thing. And much like Kirby can in his normal games, he can sort of change form depending on the stuff he eats. You know, he can become bigger, or he can become this kind of cupcake thing, and this cupcake thing sucks in strawberries, or he can become a kind of jelly-like thing, which means he can go through cracks in walls easier and that kind of thing. Then you have the kind of Mario Party end of things, which is just mini games. You know, various sorts of different mini games. I wouldn't imagine they last longer than a minute, 2 minute kind of thing. And again, collect as many strawberries as you can, and so on. And then there's the battle mode. Same deal, collect as many strawberries as you can, but now you can bump people off. You can also steal any strawberries they've collected during the tournament kind of thing. So again, that's a little bit Mario Party as well, and that there's always bullshit at the very end of the competition and people getting stars for no reason kind of thing. But yeah, that's Kirby Dream Buffet. Sort of was announced and then just came out. Cursed to Golf is a roguelike golf game. If you have ever played any of the kind of older Flash golf games, you'll probably have a good idea of what this game is about. You are essentially, you know, thrown into purgatory. You have 18 holes to try to win your life back kind of thing. Going up against, you know, legendary caddies, I think is what they're called in this. You have a certain number of hits before you get to the end of each hole that you need to make it in X number of hits, I guess, in par. Various different hazards, and then you have various different power-ups and stuff. You can have like a multi-ball. You can have a ball that just stops dead at one point and drops immediately. You've got the thing that can drill through holes and so on. Yeah, bit of fun, but again, if you've played any of those kind of golf flash type games, you have an idea of what this is about or how this will play. And then not necessarily a new game, but I wanted to highlight this because it is a pretty big update to Cloudpunk, and we will be playing Cloudpunk at some point on the channel. So I had been waiting to see if this would ever get ported over to PS5, or more specifically, the updates would get ported over, because it gets a lot of support on PC, but was getting very little support on console. And since I don't have a particularly great PC, I play most of my games on console. It's like, come on, give me all the new shit in this as well. So it's the kind of stuff you would expect from a current gen upgrade. It's like 4K resolutions, volumetric fog, it's 60 frames per second. But the kind of more interesting thing, at least to me, because when I saw the update on the PC one, I was like, oh, when does this come to console? The update is that there is a cockpit mode now as well. And that mightn't seem like a big deal, but it's when you see how pretty this game is in motion, it's a big deal. And if this can kind of pave the way for PSVR 2, and we can get a fully VR Cloudpunk, because I think the PC version also supports VR. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I hope that they do release a VR patch for it on PSVR 2 when it comes out at some point, and then we'll play it. Maybe it'll be the first VR game I play on the channel. First PSVR 2 game I play on the channel anyway. And then the epic game for this week is Doom 64. So this is the Doom game that came out on the Nintendo 64, but it's been remastered. It's got nice bells and whistles. It's got redone textures, and it runs at a much better frame rate, etc., etc., that kind of thing. Free on the Epic Games Store right now up until the 25th, which is Friday. Yeah, I think it's Friday. Thursday, maybe. Okay. So that's all the fun stuff about video games, but it is now time to talk about the worst part of video games, the video game industry. So Embracer Group, continuing their clearly villainous nature, they are embracing even more IP. So the big one for them right now this week was acquiring the rights to The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. So this is like vast majority of the Middle Earth stuff, as well as a couple of other acquisitions, so totaling around 6 billion SEK. Don't know what that is. Swedish kroner, maybe. Which is around 576 million US dollars. So they've acquired the IP rights for Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit from Middle Earth Enterprises, who were basically the holding house for the IP rights up until now. And the idea is Embracer Group will be looking to do films focused on specific characters, and then some stuff from the IP that hasn't been put to film yet. So maybe the Silmarillion and that kind of thing. So they'd be looking to do movies based on iconic characters such as Gandalf, Aragorn, and so on. Galadriel. Is Eowyn an iconic character? I don't know. Anyway, they've also acquired Limited Run. Limited Run are a publisher who make physical copies of games that are typically digital only. So that's a very strange way to put it. But games that come out digital only, which is a lot of indie games because it's cheaper to just put out a digital file than it is to actually get something pressed onto a Blu-ray. Sometimes, if the games do really well and they're very popular, they will do a limited run of a physical version of those games. Like I have one for Hyper Light Drifter, for instance, I got from Limited Run. Again, Hyper Light Drifter, really good game. I'm really bad at. So yeah, they have acquired Limited Run as well as the 40% ownership in a joint venture with Super Deluxe Games, which do something kind of similar in Japan. So the idea will be is that they'll use Limited Run as a gateway into the Japanese market as well. Singtrix, which is another thing they've acquired, is a vocal processing effects technology for karaoke, gaming, and entertainment. So that's more of like a middleware kind of thing. This was bought through Embracer's new operative division, Free Mode. So all of those things were bought with the subsidiary Free Mode. Free Mode will focus its operating activities in the retro, classic, and heritage gaming category. Heritage gaming. That's an interesting way to put it. As well as investing in iconic gaming and entertainment properties. So this is basically popular shit that's a bit old. That seems to be what they'll be focusing on. And then Saber Interactive, another subsidiary of Embracer Group, have bought Killing Floor and Maneater developer Tripwire Interactive. Killing Floor, I think, is like an arena shooter thing. I don't know it too well. Maneater is the game where you play as a shark and go around being a shark, basically. And Teardown by Tuxedo Labs. I think Teardown is like a house refurbishment game. I think. I'm not too sure about that, but anyway, they bought those two as well. So yeah, Embracer continues to be like this big, just octopus around the video game industry, gradually picking off companies until they eventually amass all of the companies. That seems to be what's happening here. Sticking with Embracer, there was news a while ago that the Knights of the Old Republic reboot was in a bit of trouble because Aspyr Media had fired like their creative director and their narrative director and a bunch of other high-level people, even though they had shown off a successful demo. And they're like, why? What did you do that for? And the idea is that they pretty much blew their whole budget on the demo and they had no money to pay anybody anymore. It was then announced that Saber were working alongside Saber Interactive, remember, are a subsidiary of Embracer Group, so they were working alongside Aspyr, probably to like shore up the number of developers they would need. And then Saber had taken over development of the project entirely. There was a rumor of it. So Embracer didn't specifically say whether that was the case, but it sure sounds like that's what they're talking about. One of the group's AAA projects has transitioned to another studio within the group. So both Aspyr and Saber are both owned by Embracer Group. This was done to ensure the quality bar is where we need it to be for the title. We are not expecting any material delays for the title based on this transition. Now that's a bit... This is why it might not be Knights of the Old Republic, because developers who were working on it and saw the demo and so on, worked with Aspyr, were like, the release date's meant to be the end of this year. And they're like, no, it's like, maybe try the end of 2025. Maybe then it'll be ready. Considering how big Knights of the Old Republic is, and if it would have to be ported to, not ported, but remade for like current gen and have that kind of current gen fidelity, yeah, not surprising it would take that long. It's a huge game. That's a lot of content to be worked on and a lot of intricate systems that all work together. Like it's a complex game. So Yeah, I think this material delay thing, kind of bullshit. It's gonna be a while. Assuming that is the game they're talking about, which it probably is. Hey, Call of Duty are back, and guess what? They're stealing more skins from people. Not to be undone with the weird Samoyed dog skin from last time. Now they're stealing from another game entirely, so... Art for Dead Drop was revealed in July. So Dead Drop is a game from ex-Infinity Ward employee Robert Bowling and somebody else who I won't name. They revealed their art, but now a very similar looking skin called the Doomsayer is available in Vanguard and Warzone. So, yeah, these aren't from the same game, but they sure look the exact fucking same, right? Anyway, this was pointed out to Bowling that, hey, this guy and this guy sure look the same, huh? Maybe something's up with that. I found out about this due to my mentions blowing up from a community tagging me in their replies. So yeah, last week we had Activision saying that we are very much respectful of content creators and the artistic process, and it's like, no, you're not. Clearly you aren't. Clearly you are happy to steal from people and try to get away with it. It's like, good luck getting away with this stuff in, the modern age, in the internet age. It's not happening. But we're not done. We're not done with Activision just yet. Communication Workers of America files new labor practice charge against Activision Blizzard. Would you know it? They just can't stop union busting. They just can't stop it. The Communication Workers of America, which is a union that the Raven Software QA team are umbrellaed under, I guess, has accused Activision Blizzard of illegally surveying employees while protesting and cutting off chat channels as staff discuss labor issues. This is union busting, basically. The filing says that the firm also threatened to remove employee access to other internal message channels where pay and working conditions were discussed. It should be, again, pointed out, and is pointed out in this article, that discussing pay and going to protest without being surveyed is legally protected. You are allowed to talk about your salary. You are allowed to talk about pay. You are allowed to talk about unionizing, etc. It is legally protected, and what Activision allegedly are doing is very much illegal. For Activision's part, they say the CWA continues to create an inaccurate picture of Activision Blizzard that willfully ignores the facts. Doubt. The CWA's efforts are preventing the company from protecting our employees from disrespectful or disparaging remarks. Yeah, Activision is all about protecting its employees, as we've seen from their multiple harassment and disparagement and gender inequality and so on issues going on at the company. They're all about protecting their employees, though. Anyway, this is kind of a... Ordinarily, I wouldn't be talking about this kind of news because I feel it's not video game news, even though it's somewhat adjacent, but not necessarily video game news. But I'm talking about it for a different reason. So Sony are planning or have an idea to make a Days Gone movie. But as Kenneth Shepard here for Fanbyte points out, that Sony are unwilling to make a sequel to the game, but they're perfectly fine making a film for it. Which is like, why? What merit do you see in the game? What merit do you see in the IP that's good enough to make a film, but not good enough to make a sequel to the game? Long after Sony turned down a pitch for a sequel to the open world zombie game, they decided to greenlight a film. It does feel odd that Sony is unwilling to make a Days Gone sequel, reportedly because the game's critical reception was middling. Is this a chance to give the series new life, or is it just the company scraping the bottom of the barrel of its IPs to make more movies? Probably the second one. I mean, if you take their idea that the game wasn't good enough to make a sequel, so we're just going to milk as much of it as we can to get a film out of it, instead of, hey, this game was good enough that we think the story should be made into a film, that, hey, maybe it was good enough to make a sequel too. You know, it's just a strange position for Sony to take, I guess, is my feeling behind it. Now, I played Days Gone, platinumed Days Gone. It's okay. This is like, It's like the kind of guy who has, Steam hours, like something ridiculous, and says it's okay. It's like it's okay. There are some good ideas. Like there are some good systems in the game that I would like to see them get another shot at, basically to try and improve upon them. Like the motorbike handles really nice about halfway through the game. At the beginning of the game, it's not great, and it's meant to highlight that. Okay, spoilers for the very, very start of the game, but you start off with like a really nice max level bike, basically, and it gets fucked up. And you're pretty much reduced back to like a starter bike that's not great. And it's meant to not be great. It's meant to highlight that the bike he used to have was so much better. And you eventually start, replacing parts and upgrading it, and eventually it becomes better even than the bike you had before. But the thing is, it takes a long while to get there. And it means that the bike doesn't handle great for the opening part of the game, but handles so nice, like in the second half of the game. So I think that was probably a bit of a mistake. And then the second thing is the hordes. Fighting the hordes is really good. Like it is probably the best part of the game. So if you're not familiar, Days Gone is a zombie game, effectively. But the horde fight is basically you have this mass of zombies coming at you. I want to say wave, but that's not going to get. It's not like a wave based thing. It's just hundreds of them all converging on you, and you have to constantly be on the move to get away and not get swarmed. The individual zombies don't have a lot of health. They go down pretty quickly, but there's so many of them. Like they're just this writhing mass, like World War Z kind of thing. And it's just like this writhing mass of them tumbling over each other to get at you. Climbing over obstacles, running underneath like tunnels and stuff like that to come out from behind you and that kind of thing. Luckily, they're not smart and they just converge on you like a flocking kind of mechanic. But it's you trying to like turn, shoot, throw a bomb, run up here. No, I can't get in. It's dead end. I got to climb up this thing. It's a lot of stuff you need to think about very quickly. It can be like overwhelming to think about how the fuck do I get away from all of these guys and so on. They wait too long to introduce that in the game. Like you don't start doing that until close to the end of the game. And then they're like, now you're ready to take on the hordes. And you're like, I should have been ready a long time ago. This should have been something they build up. And like the very last horde is something ridiculous. Like start off with something small and build your way up. Pretty standard, but they don't. Like they wait till very late in the game to be like, okay, now let's deal with the hordes. And it's like, I do understand the mentality was that they wanted to, make them seem threatening. Make them seem like do not engage at all. Like this is death, certain death kind of thing. And like they do a good job of that, sure. But also, it's also one of the best parts of the game to try to go up against them and try to win. And I don't know. It was a mistake to wait too long. I think they just waited too long to introduce it. Anyway, that's my 2 cents about Days Gone. All right. We're going to finish with some dumb stuff. So EA made a bit of a pricing error in the Indian store. They ended up pricing the Ultimate Edition of FIFA 23 for 4 rupees. Almost 5 rupees. Which is, if you do the conversion into pound sterling, it's 5 pennies. That equates to a 99.98% discount on the game. And EA are going to honor it. They're like, yep, we fucked up. Okay, that was entirely our fault. It wasn't a glitch. Somebody definitely put in the price as 5 rupees instead of what it probably should have been. It's like 5,000 rupees, I think is the correct amount that was probably supposed to be put in. Or if you like 4,800 rupees. But yeah, big fuck up there. But it's not like... Here's the thing. It's not like EA make all their money on the actual entry cost price of FIFA. They make their money on the microtransaction foot shit, So I don't think it's a big issue for them to just take a hit on it. Anyway, still, it's pretty dumb. And then this is kind of a weird story, and I'm kind of only bringing it up because I sort of I get where they're coming from, not just because of the Nier Automata stuff, although something else. So, Jen who worked as a paralegal, went viral on Twitter earlier this year, as she put it, by swiping on Tinder and getting guys to buy Nier Automata and then ghosting them, which is a noble endeavor. I used to roam around on Tinder, get guys to buy Nier Automata, and then ghost them. I think my count was up to 22 when I stopped. I mean, I never said I'd fuck with them. I mostly just talked a lot about it and recommended the game. Also, high sales means more Taro games, so like I get where they're coming from. Like more Yoko Taro, please. But still, at least some of the people pictured did genuinely actually play the game. They're seeing like chat messages between Jen and these other guys on Twitter, Tinder, and so on. So yeah, this is kind of what I wanted to talk about, because this is sort of something I feel myself. It's an idea she took to heart on Tinder. Having no one local to talk to about the game, she hoped to change her luck on a dating app. Most such interactions were shallow, however. Many Tinder matches wouldn't appreciate it as much as I did, or when I wanted to talk about every detail and they just said it was a good game, but there isn't that much to talk about. So, personally, from a personal standpoint, I do feel the need to talk about video games in general. I wouldn't necessarily just pick Nier Automata, although Nier Automata, amazing game. Absolutely go play it. But the idea of having no one local to talk about the game and wanting to talk about it with other people and wanting to talk about it with someone who enjoys it as much as you do, or at the same level as you do, or can, have a proper like discussion about the medium. It's like people, you talk about films together with people, you talk about TV show you're watching together, stuff like that, books you've read, like book clubs. Like book clubs aren't meant to be about just getting shit-faced on a Saturday, they're meant to be like, originally were about discussing the book. That's kind of why I started. There's multiple reasons I've given for why I started YouTube and why I started streaming and so on, but a lot of it was wanting to reach out to people to talk about these kind of things, because I don't really have people like local to me who want to talk about this stuff, brothers and friends and what have you. They have other things they're interested in and aren't quite as obsessed about video games as I am. And that's fine, everyone has their own life, but I would like to be able to talk about this kind of thing. And I get where they're coming from. Tinder's a weird way to go for it, but okay. I get it. Like, I would also like to meet someone who is super interested in video games. That'd be great. But eventually they stopped. They're like, it was kind of shitty for me to be ghosting people. I wouldn't want to be ghosted, etc. Again, agree. Ghosting people is not nice. You should really just tell them if you have a problem with them or whatever. Highlight for her, Yoko Taro followed me a few years back when I made nude fan art of the two main girls of Automata. I think that made my obsession even stronger. So, again, Yoko Taro's a huge pervert. This is known. Just look at how any of the characters are designed in his games. Anyway, that's pretty funny. Right. Let's leave Hymesia, maybe, since Roller Drum doesn't have any actual gameplay. Anyway, that was the news recap for the 15th to the 21st of August, 2022. The report coming out of Nintendo, as I said, it's not necessarily just highlight Nintendo is bad or whatever. It's more to just show off that nobody's immune to that kind of thing. Even Nintendo, who you would think would be a bastion of like wholesomeness and that kind of thing, it happens there too, So something to keep an eye on. Even your company that you work for, it could be happening there too. It's just keep an eye out. Look out for your colleagues. And if you're that guy, stop being that guy. Okay. Updates. Some interesting games pointed out there. Again, the weird vampire hotel thing. It has a smack of this is fake and not real gameplay kind of thing. Like I don't for a moment think that they were expecting anyone to think it's real gameplay, but it's hard to tell what exactly, or not. It's hard to tell how exactly the game actually plays. So I guess we'll see on that. Another Ninja Gaiden type thing. Yes, more please. Hook it to my veins, etc. And the Lego game will be interesting if it does play the way I want it to play, which we will see. We'll see later. Cool, more Game Pass stuff. Yeah, Midnight Fight Express and Immortality are good gets for them. If you have Game Pass, do consider checking them out. Bunch of new releases. A lot of them will show up on the channel at some point. In fact, all of them except maybe the Kirby game, because it's very much a multiplayer thing. But the rest of them, yeah, they'll probably all be on the channel at some point. Maybe some sooner than others. Industry bullshit. Embracer continue to embrace everything. Again, not surprising. That is their name, after all. I do hope the news about Knights of the Old Republic is true, and that it hasn't just been shut down entirely. Development, that development is continuing. Like, if it does end up going out to 2025, fine. Like, I didn't think it would ever come out. You know, I didn't think there'd ever be a remake of Knights of the Old Republic. I always wanted one, but I didn't think there ever would be one. So great, take your time, make it a great game. The original is amazing. Hopefully the reboot will be as well. Activision stealing more plagiarism stuff again. They had a precedent already before they stole the dog one, and then they stole the dog one, and now they're stealing one from a literal competitor. It's from another first-person shooter. Like, what are you doing? I'm actually curious if it's the same guy in the art department doing this. You know, or do they have like how many of these can we get away with? You know, how many other skins are there out there that were plagiarized before all of this, and so on. And another complaint of them union busting. It's not. I mean, it's good that we're seeing the complaints. Well, in a way, I suppose. It's good that they're being called out. It's not good that there are complaints to be made in the first place. But it's Activision being Activision. This is their playbook. They don't want their employees to have any power whatsoever. So, yeah, that's not great, but here we are. Anyway, that is the news for this week. But what is happening on the channel? So, channel update. This is the current state of our roadmap, our game mosaic, as I've been calling it. So this week, Melwin and I, we finished Little Hope. So that's complete now. Also, we finished Bayonetta. I was very rusty. We were almost a month between the last time I had played it, and Bayonetta is something that you kind of need muscle memory for, so it sort of made me rethink the coin flip thing. So I'm not sure if I'll continue doing coin flipping. I might just alternate games instead, or I might just stick with one game and go with it. We also played Cult of the Lamb on Friday. We had a quick playthrough of that. Fun game. I've been playing it a lot, actually, since the stream. So I've been kind of binging on Cult of the Lamb for a good while now. Anyway, that was last week, and this is how it stands now. So Roller Drum, as I said, will be coming up soon. And Thymesia will be coming up soon. And maybe Returnal, because on Monday, at least until I have to confirm this with Melwin, but the idea is that we were talking about it after we finished Little Hope. Both Man of Medan and Little Hope were in the PlayStation Plus catalog, or were on PlayStation Plus at some point. The one after that, House of Ashes, is not. So we're going to wait and see that maybe when Devil in Me is announced, or not announced, when Devil in Me is released, that maybe House of Ashes will go on discount, or it'll be added to the catalog or something, then we'll come back to it. But in the meantime, Melwin has been wanting to play Returnal since they got a PS5, and since there is now a co-op mode, and I have platinumed Returnal, so I might be a good sort of Sherpa for her playing through Returnal. So that's the idea. So unless you hear otherwise, we will be playing Returnal tomorrow night. I will be trying to help Melwin finish the game, more or less. They've never played it before, so we'll be starting from scratch, whereas I have, and have platinumed it. I've played the shit out of Returnal, and grew to hate it, to be perfectly honest, but that's what happens when you try to platinum a game. You eventually play it so much that you just despise the game after a while. That's why you should make your trophies easier to get, otherwise you're just going to hate the game. But anyway, there is now a co-op thing for Returnal, so we're going to have a look at that. Wednesday, Foley Fables. We will be continuing The Council. The Council is an 18th century mystery kind of game with some historical figures, George Washington, Napoleon Bonaparte, others. Others who may not be as recognizable, we'll say. So we're making our way through that now. Was originally an episodic game, and we are, I think, at the end of episode 2. So we've discovered some things about our host for this party that we've all been invited to. We've discovered some news about our mother who's gone missing. It's the whole reason we're on the island in the first place, because we're trying to find her. We've discovered some interesting secrets about different people, and there may or may not be a conspiracy afoot. There is. There's definitely a conspiracy. But anyway, that's where we're going on that, so we'll be continuing on Wednesday. On Thursday, since Bayonetta is finished, we're going to go back to Batman Arkham Asylum, not doing a coin flip thing because I don't have a game to put on the Tales side. So we're just going to continue Batman Arkham Asylum, and I think we will just keep playing until it's done. Because I don't think there are many streams left. It's two or three streams left, I would think. And then maybe a mop-up one for like all the collectibles, Riddler trophies, that kind of thing. The 100% thing. So yeah, we're talking 3 or 4 streams maybe. And I think possibly by then A Plague Tale Requiem will be out. And that is kind of when I'm keen to do a Let's Play of that when it comes out. So I'm kind of want to keep space for it, so I guess we'll see with that. But I think Batman will be finished by then. However, I will do a coin flip for the game on Friday. Now, typically, it's only every other Friday I do a stream because I have D&D. But not this Friday. This Friday, I will be able to play. So, between Thymesia and Rollerdrome, we'll play one of those on Friday. So, we're gonna do 5 coin flips, right? So, best of 5. Might actually have to do all 5 coin flips. We'll do best of 5. Okay, so between Thymesia and Rollerdrome. Okay, 1 for Thymesia. 1 for Rollerdrome, alright. 50-50. 2 for Thymesia. Okay, if it's Thymesia, then we're done. Thymesia, okay. So we're gonna play Thymesia, which, as I did mention, is budget Bloodborne. Basically, it's the Bloodborne your mom makes when you want McDonald's, and she says we have McDonald's at home. So yeah, it's a action RPG kind, Masocore kind of thing, where you are a plague doctor who is dealing with a plague, as you might imagine, that's been born out of the misuse of alchemy and some other stuff. So we'll see what that's like. I imagine a sizable amount of Euro jank. And finally, on Saturday, we will be continuing Xenoblade Chronicles 2, as we will be doing for quite some time to come, because it is a very long game. We are into Chapter 5 now, for anyone who's played the game already. So we have discovered Tora's father and some other artificial blades, and Tora's artificial blade Poppy has a new form, and so on. So there's some new stuff happening there. Again, if you want to catch up on the VODs for any of these games, you can check it out over on YouTube. The youtube.com/DimTrain5. There's VODs for Xenoblade, Batman, The Council, Bayonetta, all of those. Anyway, that is us for today. That is our weekly news recap and our channel update. Okay, so tomorrow, unless you hear otherwise, we'll be doing a cooperative run of Returnal to figure out what is actually required to do co-op. I believe both players have to have died once. Like there is like not a scripted death, but a sort of almost required first death. But chances are that's going to happen very early for most players. So I don't think that'll be too difficult. I won't have to do it. I've died many times in Returnal, so I'll be all right. It's Melwyn. We might have to like force a death for her or something so that we can get into the co-op together. But yeah, that's the plan. And then it'll be the Council on Wednesday, Batman Arkham Asylum on Thursday, Thymesia on Friday, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 on Saturday, and then we'll be right back around to the weekly news update and channel update on Sunday. Anyway, I'm going to go play some more Cult of the Lamb, so I'll see you guys tomorrow, hopefully. Have a good one.